listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the No Nay Never podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Bromley, and this week we have a bumper double edition for you. We have the preview show, looking ahead to United at Saturday, that key Premier League fixture away at Old Trafford, and we're looking back at Sunderland, and we're looking back at Derby. I am joined this week by regular analysts George Poole and Rich Steele, and Statman Dave is going to be joining us later on to give us all the stats and facts that you need ahead of the trip to Old Trafford. So, let's go. Rich, welcome.
Good evening, Natalie. Good evening, George. Good evening, listeners. I hope we're all well.
We are. And George, how are you? Take two.
Yeah, really good. I'm just giggling away thinking about United currently 2-0 down at Grimsby and Leeds losing last night to Sheff Wednesday. Oh, it's just fantastic.
Well, have we not learnt our lessons in the past, George, about not getting too giddy and too gloating about other teams' demise when we start hurtling towards terrible fate in the Premier League? I think we should not get cocky just yet. But yes, there was definitely some whinging on social media about Leeds last night, which was very amusing. So, listeners, we're going to do this three-part today. So we've got lots to cram in. So I'm going to crack on so we don't lose some time. And I'm going to start this week's podcast, I think, with Sunderland at home. Burnley's first home game of the season. Bit early in the season to have a crucial 6-pointer, but here we are. And the Clarets cruising to a 2-0 victory and very much dominating Sunderland. Rich, let's come to you first. It did feel early to have a 6-pointer at the second game of the season, the first home game. But I don't think anybody could really lose sight of the absolute magnitude of that game so early on.
Jorginho, I'm going to come to you first. What did I say in the WhatsApp group pre-game? What did I say?
About United?
No, about the score before the Sunderland game.
You said it'd be 2-0, a 2-0 home victory. Did Rich?
Said an easy 2-0 home win while everybody else was flapping and panicking and getting down and out after the Tottenham game. Where was the faith, George, after the Tottenham game? We go when we beat Sunderland 2-0, nice and comfortable. Top performance from my man, Jadon Anthony. Josh Cullen played like the Cockney Irish Iniesta in midfield, and the Clarets are mid-table in the Premier League. And I think judging how things are going at United, I think we're going into the game at Old Trafford as favourites, aren't we?
Excellent. George, any response from you to that? I'm just going to step out while you two have this out on podcast.
Yeah, well, I think if Rich brushed up on his history, he'll recognise that No Nay Never's had a long history with reverse psychology, and it's often worked in our favour. And I might suggest that I was employing that over the last couple of weeks.
I copyrighted that. You can't have it without paying me royalties, so just steady on. Anyway, are we done?
No.
You're right now.
No, in all seriousness, I'm going to say I thought there was a lot of I just can't get my voice back. It's been gone for ages, but anyway, I thought there was a lot of over negative stuff going on Twitter after the Tottenham game. Firstly, about the performance and just generally about the club itself, which frustrated me, if I'm being honest. So I'm really glad we got that win. But the first half was probably a 50-50 game. Sunderland had a couple of early chances, which was a little bit too open at the back. But after that happened, we tightened up. I thought we got a goal quite harshly disallowed, if I'm being honest. I thought the threshold was a little bit higher on VAR this year, and there was minimal contact by Foster, who I thought, like he did at Tottenham, I thought put in a really good performance on his own up front. And then the second half was, people talk about Parker and his tactics and different things like that, and have been critical at times, as we all have. But I thought that was an absolute tactical masterclass from Parker after we scored that first goal. We let Sunderland have the ball. They never looked in any pressure. Obviously, there's been a lot highlighted of Trafford going and having Dubravka in net. We could have even had an Arna in the goal on Saturday, and I think we wouldn't have conceded. Our defence and shape was that good. And yeah, like that second goal as well. What a fantastic goal on the counter-attack that was. I think past Premier League sides, as amazing as that Daishira was, when we went 1-0 up with like 20 minutes to go when we ended up defending, we literally did end up defending our box, where we never had that type of goal in us, where we showed like quality, pace. I thought Anthony's another player where he comes in for unnecessary stick. from a lot of people on social media, and I just don't understand it. Took his goal really well. And yeah, it's just a real good feel factor after the game. And obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Sunderland. I still think they'll do quite well this season. Whether that's stay up or not, I don't know. But they'll be, in my opinion, competitive. I know you don't agree, but I think they'll do okay. So I think that was a really good performance from us. And like I said, another player who I've always liked in Ekdal, the way we played on Saturday really suited him. Where he's going to struggle in a kind of Vincent Kompany system where he's being asked to defend like on the high, with a high line, but defending that little bit deeper where he can read the game, make headers, make blocks. I thought he was superb. So yeah, just a real pleasing performance all around, and a little bit of relief too to get that 3 points under our belt so quickly.
Yeah, definitely. George, picking up on something that Rich said in there, it's definitely something that we talked about in the preview show last week, building up to this game. As suspected, Parker changed the formation at the back and dropped the right back and put Kyle Walker at right back and went back to a four-man defence. How did that change the shape for you, and did that have the result that the desired result in terms of performance?
I think it's a bit more. I think it was quite nuanced, the formation on last Saturday, because although on paper, obviously you have Brun Larson in and you go back to a back four, I thought out of possession we were mainly a back five with Brun Larson as the right wing back. So I think it was probably a bit of a hybrid by Parker, and probably an indication of how we're going to set up against the bottom 10 sides, let's say, this season, where you have Brun Larson in there who can obviously play forward as a winger, but can slot in as a right wing back. Now, to be fair, on Saturday, I actually think Brun Larson wasn't too impressive, but I've seen a lot of people like on Twitter and stuff saying, "Oh, Brun Larson was rubbish. Like, what a stupid, player to put in." And I just think, settle down. It's his first game of the season. Like, you can forgive him for 45 minutes of not looking all that impressive. So yeah, for me, the actual change wasn't fantastic by any means, but I thought it was probably an indication of what we expect to see this season, where, say, against these teams in and around us, we'll play a 4 at the back, but out of possession, it'll come to a 5 at the back and be similar to what we saw at Spurs the week prior.
Yeah. I mean, one of the criticisms of that, George, was that in the Spurs game, when we did have a persistent 5 at the back and it was a very solid defence, we looked really lost in midfield. We didn't look like we could, and we just gave Spurs all the space in the world to run over our midfield and create whatever they wanted. That was missing. Now, obviously, Ugochukwu came in central midfield alongside Cullen. We'll come on to him in a second, but we just looked like we permanently had control of that midfield scenario, right?
Definitely. I mean, I'll come on to Ugochukwu now because I think it's because of him, more than anything, the reason we managed to have that control in midfield. If there was one negative to pick up from his performance, I think he could have perhaps been a bit more progressive in his passing. But apart from that, he was honestly tremendous. He just strutted about the pitch, really. He had the physicality, he had the wherewithal, he knew where to be and when he needed to be. And he really just bossed it in midfield. And his sort of anchor role really allowed Cullen, the freedom to move forward, and you saw in his goal, Cullen on the edge of the box, and obviously the second goal, Cullen in a forward position, whipping the ball over for Anthony. I think Ugochukwu's debut from the start really allowed Cullen the freedom of Turf Moor, and at the same time having Cullen and Leslie in there in a holding midfield, when we're out of possession, made us a lot more solid. And I think Sunderland really didn't have a sniff. That second half, did Bradford have a save to make, apart from, maybe punching the ball clear from across every now and again? No. So I thought it was a really professional display. And in that second half, we bossed them.
Yeah, we really did.
Don't get me wrong. At half time, you were thinking, oh, it's been an okay game. We've been all right. Second half, there was only one clear winner, and it was Burnley.
Yeah, definitely. Rich, looking at that midfield, then obviously Ugochukwu came in alongside Cullen. We had Hannibal behind Foster and Jaden Ante and JBL making up the rest of it. you did advocate, I think, for Fleming to come on and play up top. You thought he deserved his chance, but he did stick with Foster. And that loyalty paid off, I think. I think Foster had a good
I don't think I did.
Oh, was it not you?
Not me with Fleming. No, I thought Foster. I thought Foster played well against Tottenham. If I'm being honest, against two really good centre halves, and it's not easy playing up front on your own in the Premier League with quite a defensive. It wasn't really defensive, but like Hannibal plays for us as kind of a weird number 10 role, doesn't he? He doesn't play like a number 10, like is the kind of traditional number 10 in the Premier League. But like George said, obviously Ogachukwu, who come in and played very well. It's easier to play in midfield at home against Sunderland than it is away against Tottenham. Going back to the Tottenham and the space in midfield, bigger pitch, better players who can move the ball a bit quicker. But yeah, I like that formation we played. I think, like Joy said, it's a bit of a hybrid, but it's still more of a 4 at the back. I still think we would I thought Brun Larsen did his job well, but even if you're a wing back, as you need to have a bit more going forward, like Hartman showed as well. So I think probably come on to it when we go on to the Sunderland game. There's a case for Shauner to start, who looked impressive.
How are you saying it, George?
Definitely Loom Chauner.
Loom
Chauner.
There we go. So what's my train of thought there? But yeah, like I said, I think Ogachukwu is only going to get. I don't want to repeat George too much, but I think he's probably playing at nowhere near 100% either. So I'm really looking forward to how he sees developing. And like George said, I think as he plays more, we'll get a little bit more progressive. But yeah, I think Cullen's loving it in this role. He's got a bit more freedom, hasn't he? But Cullen is, he's some player, really is a good player. We want to keep him at Burnley for as long as possible, but he just looks an absolute ready-made Premier League player, and he's just growing in confidence all the time. So, there's good signs.
He started, didn't he, under Company in the Premier League?
I don't think he was trusted. I don't think he was trusted. Company was chopping and changing.
Anybody. He was an idiot.
No, this is what I'm saying. Browner was out the team. Burge was out the team even for a bit. Yeah, we're not going to go. I don't think we need to go back to that. But I think we've like I've said, we are going to lack quality still. We're still going to come on some podcasts this season and go, we played okay, but we couldn't break teams down. That is going to happen. But we know we've got a team who's going to be competitive, and we're going to be in an and like you said, we've got every chance on Saturday going there and getting something. It was just really good to get that win, wasn't it? There was a bit of relief there, just really good feeling Saturday evening, just could breathe a little bit and think, right, we're going to be okay this season. It's going to be, Premier League's tough, but I think we are going to have an enjoyable season.
Hopefully, better than the last one anyway, for sure. Foster a little bit unlucky, George, to get his goal. That would have been a really nice start for him to get that goal if it hadn't been choked off.
It would. It's a shame football's a non-contact sport these days, isn't it? Because, 15 years ago, a goal like that, you think fair play to the striker, defender needs to be stronger, and, you're happy as Larry. In this day and age, something like that, it's going to get disallowed. It's nonsense, but it is what it is. So I wasn't particularly peeved last Saturday when it happened, because you knew as soon as that defender touched the ground and the sort of way it looked, you knew it was going to be a foul. So a shame, but I thought he took his non-goal very well. It obviously looked a bit better because it took a deflection, so it went to the roof of the net, but he still showed a lot of poise in the way he set himself up to shoot. So, promising signs. We'll talk about Derby later, and obviously Brozier probably didn't make a case to start, so you're looking at Foster probably getting the nod for next week, and then you're heading into the international break, and if he can get a goal, I think he can, lay claim to that starting berth until Christmas,
Oh, that's interesting. That's a bold claim there, George, from you. I think, Rich, I think for me it was the pleasing nature of the goals that were created for a side that sometimes has been quite heavily criticised in the Premier League about not being particularly technically gifted and just potentially just being, quite dinosaur in their approach. And given Parker's tendencies to play perhaps on the side of caution quite a lot, Both goals were really well put together goals and very proactive and very entertaining on the eye.
Yeah, beautiful goals, really well worked. You won't see better moves, all weekend in the Premier League. As I mentioned before, that goal on the counter attack was fantastic. Everything about it was really well worked. I think genuinely, probably since January, we have scored quite a lot of goals. I think we've obviously, we've talked about this a lot. We obviously wanted to get the defence right, and then you're seeing the team progress from there. And, even if you look at last season's catalogue, there were some really nice goals in there. And like I said, I think, as well as having that good defence, we have got some good players. We have got a lot of players who are comfortable on the ball. I think this season we're going to have good options coming off the bench. Obviously we've seen yesterday, some players didn't play as well. Some players did play well in the cup game, but we are going to have good options. It's going to be interesting to see if we're going to add in the transfer window, which is probably 50-50 at this stage. But yeah, I think we can definitely pose teams problems, from an attacking point of view. Even at Tottenham, it was just literally that last little bit, at 1-0, we caused them a lot of problems. And if we got that equaliser, we could have got a different result. I think this season will be similar in a dice season in the fact of if we go 1-0 up, I think we'll win, our defence and the way we structure, but we might find it hard breaking teams down when we're actually trying to force the issue. But again, we'll see how we go.
Another player to single out as well, George, Jadon Anthony. We did ponder over the summer podcast as to whether or not he would make the transition up to being a Premier League player. Looked spectacularly at home. Again, caveated by the fact that it's at home against Sunderland, but looked spectacularly comfortable on Saturday and capped it off with another brilliant goal as well. And for me, I think he's probably one of the names on the team sheet that has to start. I know that's a pretty bold claim, but I think for me, he is.
He's a great functional winger, isn't he? I think for me, he's one of those who'll give you a 7 out of 10 every week, and even if he isn't playing, at full tilt, you can really expect him to put in a shift. Defensively sound, always switched on, knows where to be and when to be at the right time. Has a fantastic first touch on him, and if he adds, goals to his game in terms of regularly scoring, then we're all the better for it. Obviously, I think we're going to be a side this season where, to be honest, I doubt if any of our strikers will score 10 goals this season, individually. So we're just going to be relying on bringing goals from elsewhere on the pitch. And we showed last season that we were capable of doing that. Obviously, it meant Brownhill going and scoring 10 plus goals. I think it was 16 in the end from midfield. But if we can get the likes of Cullen, who scored at the weekend, Anthony, say an Edwards coming in, Chowner, if we can get these players scoring, Oliver Son, right wing back, a Brunlarson, then it takes the pressure of needing to find that ready-made number 9, which we probably don't have. So yeah, delighted for Anthony the way he started. He's an easy player. He is an easy player for people to criticise just because, like I say, he's a functional winger. He's never going to get a move to a top 10 team. He's never going to be that player. He's probably at his reaching, his peak right now, where, for a bottom half Premier League team, you just know what you're going to get from him. A bit like, back in the day, we used to have Michael Kiteley, George Boyd. He's one and the same as these wingers for me, where you just put him on the team sheet every week. Scott Arfield, another one, because you know what you're going to get. And he has that little bit of quality. I don't want to take that away from him. I thought his first touch for his goal and the way he managed to go around the keeper. I think he showed more striking acumen there than probably any of our strikers do. I think a lot of them would have taken that first time. But Anthony, the way he rounded the keeper was, a credit to him. So happy to see him put another great display in.
Yeah, good. Well, let's finish off Saturday's roundup. I'm going to go to George. I'm going to go to Rich. I'm just going to Rich for this one. Let's round this up, Rich, with just a final thought on just how significant this win was. Like, how vital was that? Not just in terms of Burnley's own points, but to dent that early Sunderland enthusiasm and bring them back down to earth.
Yeah, it's always nice, isn't it? I think just from Burnley's point of view, I think there's a little bit of probably scarring and baggage from the last Premier League campaign, and I think that's why people felt maybe the Tottenham performance was a sense of deja vu. Here we go again, which I never felt that, because I felt there was a lot of positives to take from that performance. And like I said, I think it just settles everybody's nerves. It takes the pressure off a little bit. We know we've got some hard, on paper, some hard fixtures to come. I think that's just more the sense of it. Not just a win, a really good performance where you feel this team can compete and can stay up. Like I said, it's just a little bit of a settler for everybody. I think that's the best way to summarise it.
And I think I'd probably add the fact, we've not mentioned any of the defence actually so far. I think Kyle Walker and Hjalmar Ekdal in particular were absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
Ekdal, wow, what a display. I think if coming out of the Tottenham game, you were considering whether he's really good enough in there. And there was times when that three at the back at Tottenham felt devoid of responsibility for the striker, which you saw in Richarlison's overhead first goal, where he just drifted back and just slotted it past all of them. If you were doubting him after that game, I think that Sunderland performance has just gone to show he's really earned his way into the team this pre-season as Ekdal, and I thought he was honestly superb. Every header he nailed on Saturday, and Walker showed his class as well. With Hartman, definitely offering a lot going forward. I think there's reason to be optimistic.
I thought he did all right. I thought he did fine. It wasn't the standout performer at the back, but I thought he was fine.
No, not Hartman. He wasn't a standout, but Ekdal and Walker for sure. Wow.
Oh yeah, they were incredible. Seeing Ekdal and Steve next to each other was outstanding on Saturday. Excuse me, shush. The cat is coming to talk to the podcast. Do you think Ekdal was very good? Yes, he did. Pickles the cat thought that Ekdal was very good. Okay, man of the match from you, please, Rich.
Cullen.
George, anybody other than Cullen?
No, it has to be Cullen. I thought, assist and a goal, and the way he sort of just had the freedom of turf all afternoon was a delight to watch.
But a special mention, I think, to Kyle Walker, because I think he was pretty close second. I think, for sure. Good. Okay, well, fast forward just 72 hours, and the Clarets are back at home, this time facing Derby County in a very early round of the League Cup. Complete and utter change in playing and the team selection here, with everybody, 11 changes being made, having Weiss in net, Sonny, Worrell, Humphreys and Perez at the back. I'd forgotten about Luca Perez, actually. Marcus Edwards gets on, Josh Lorraine, Aaron Ramsey and Chwana. I can't pronounce it. Chwana. Breuer up front and Zian Fleming. So this one, a 4-4-2 formation. Clarets going very, very early on in terms of scoring a goal. Did then concede, unfortunately, but managed to blag themselves a very late winner with an absolutely spectacular goal from Sonny, by the way, but we'll come on to that in a minute. George, presumably we expected a full 11 changes for an early round of the League Cup, but it really surprised me, considering that we weren't necessarily that confident about the depth of our squad. It surprised me about how many of the people who played in the second string team last night who could potentially mount themselves a challenge for the first team.
I had a giggle to myself last night because I came home and watched the second half. So I did miss the first half, but I came and watched the second half, and obviously it was rancid. It was one of the worst games I've ever seen. I've made my feelings clear.
Don't be dramatic, George.
No, it wasn't, George.
Honestly, abysmal, Rich. It was so boring. Nobody cared.
It was just a game of footy.
There was about 300 people on. For me, this point of the season, these cup games.
George, I've watched a lot worse than you.
We're seeing a classic.
You are an entitled young. You can tell you're of a certain generation.
It was just an alright game of footy.
It wasn't an alright game of footy. There was just it was devoid of any quality, any ambition, any care. It was so.
No, I don't agree.
And
I couldn't disagree more.
The Derby game.
Yeah, last night it was honestly so boring. It was rubbish. But let me get to my point. Sorry, it was funny. So going back to your question, Natalie. After the game, I looked at tweets from when the team was announced at 6:45, whatever it is. It gets announced early these days, and all the quote tweets were saying, "Oh my gosh, what a team! We're going to batter them. 8-0 incoming, blah, blah, blah," because obviously people looked at that team sheet and went, wow, what a team. And I think it just goes to show you can't be reading names like that off a team sheet and think you're going to batter a team, because they've never played together before. 11 changes. You can never expect a really good display. And
But
I think
George,
that's what
this is a side that was miles ahead last season with some players in there that are now a Premier League squad. Why can't we expect to batter them? Derby are a terrible side.
Because I think it's really different when these players aren't playing with each other. It's the first time they'd ever played together. Training games aside, let's say, it's really difficult to just come out.
But you've got Edwards in that side, George. You've got Fleming and Josh Loren, who played loads last season. Humphreys, fair enough, he's just coming back from injury, but Premier League quality. Perez played most of last season as well. Like,
I think it's really tricky. I think it's really tricky in these early cup games because honestly, there's hardly any fans there. It just doesn't feel like a competitive match. It didn't to me.
Right,
anyway.
You know what, Rich? I'm going to mute George because he's talking rubbish. Come back in. Tell me some good things.
Listen, to not just discredit George and rubbish what he's just saying. I always value George's opinion. Obviously, really good, intelligent lad.
You don't have to say
sometimes,
that.
No, I think sometimes George gets, a bit carried away when stuff isn't right. Gets a bit too hyperbolic. But in my opinion, the one thing I agree with George was I didn't expect to beat Derby. It's not, whenever I played football. No, I didn't, because the one thing I do agree with George is when you do play football and it's a team patched together, it is going to be a little bit disjointed. But it was just, to me, there was a lot of good quality football in that game. Yeah, there was misplaced passes. Yes, there was the odd bad first touch. Yes, there was the odd misplaced shot. But that's football. But there was also a lot of quality in the game. And I also enjoy seeing players who we've not seen so far this season. I thought Derby played well. I thought there was a little bit in intensity. There was some good tackles going in. And I thought first half, as the half progressed, we went off the boil. And then as the second half went on, we stepped up our intensity. And, we looked like the team who, I'm not saying we was going to score, but at the same time,
score, I think.
Yeah, more likely to score. And, there was players, in my opinion, who state the claim to be involved more than others. But that's there's players who's not played a lot of football, like Humphreys, who's a very good player who looked like he's not played football for 7 months. So I thought it was a decent cup tie, obviously, as listeners know, me being from Wigan, I don't go to Wigan games, but if Wigan are playing on a Tuesday or a Saturday and I'm not doing anything, I will watch the game. And for George to say that was one of the worst games of football he's watched, I watched Wigan draw 0-0 against Stevenage, Leyton Orient and Northampton last season. Now, they were worse games. If George wants to watch back a replay where I missed an open goal at Exton Villa against Gregson Lane, now, to be fair to me, I was 17, just been on one of my first nights out, and I thought there was 2 balls coming to me. But that's where I feel the exaggeration's coming a little bit. Ultimately, a second round cup tie isn't going to be played like the final of a Champions League game.
Who played well then, Rich? Who played well last night?
Yeah,
I'll go through it. I thought Perez was good. I thought, he's a player who's come on leaps and bounds. I've been critical for him. I thought Perez played well. I thought Shauna was the standout player. I thought Ramsey, as the game went on, grew into it. You could see confidence develop, and what a great story that is from a young talented player who's not played for 18 months to score the goal. I thought Benel he'd probably go on loan, but looked sharp. Obviously, we're going to probably discuss Trezor. I think Edwards, has been a bit of a talking point on Twitter. I think what people need to look at with Edwards and go, right, we've not, people criticise Anthony for being pragmatic, or however George worded it. I can't exactly remember the term he used, but then they criticise Edwards for not being defensive. Well, we don't sign a Marcus Edwards to, you want him to trap back, for him to be putting in big meaty tackles on the opposition fullback. He's got a little bit of he'll give the ball away and every now and again, but he can do a little bit of magic. Now, is Edwards someone who's going to start in the Premier League for us? Probably not, but he's still a player who we can bring on to get us a goal. And again, he's not played a lot of football. You got to understand these lads, as they do get the top training and the facilities and all this, but nothing beats that real match practice. And it's not easy. You look at Oliver Son, everyone written him off when he played in that League Cup game at Preston, and he started this season, and all of a sudden you go, there's a player there who could, maybe not a starting member, but can be a squad player, for Burnley this season. So I wouldn't say like I was watching the game on the edge of my seats and, running up and down the living room, because obviously I'm in Ireland at the moment. I couldn't go buzzing when Son scored that goal. But yeah, I quite enjoyed, and I took the game in as not just as a fan last night, but maybe kind of like, right, who's impressing, who needs work from from an analytical point of view, if you will. Yeah, I just took it for what it was rather than getting over emotional about what I was watching, really. And if it ended up being Derby scoring in the last minute, I would have gone, that's a shame, and I would have moved on quite quickly. But it's always nice to be in the hat, and you're going to need some of these lads in the Premier League, so they're going to get more minutes into their legs. Like Brozier, to me, I'm going to be honest, he looked off the pace last night, which is to be expected. He's not kicked a ball in anger really for 2 years, so he's George said before, Foster's probably going to be our player. He's going to be starting for a little bit of time. So it's good for players like him to get minutes. So yeah, but to call it one of the worst games of football I've ever watched, I think.
That was just George being dramatic. We'll let him off.
It genuinely wasn't George, right? That's all I'm saying.
George, you can say it.
You can say it lacked intensity.
Time out. Time out.
It lacked intensity, and I think that's the issue for me with these cup games, is that when it's, say, like a team like us and Derby, who obviously play each other regularly in an early round of the cup, just no one cares. Like, you can tell just by the footfall, how many fans were there last night, probably 5,000 maybe max.
But does anybody need
it's just devoid,
because you've got a lot of games, and if you want to build up to have a decent cup run and get into those late ones and give your players the extra game time, you don't want to be going hell for leather and having massive intensity in a really difficult game, because those players who've not played together, not played very often, they're going to get injured, and then your squad's knackered. Is that not the right approach?
No, I mean, the professional footballers, they should be tuned to be able to play a professional game of football. For some of them, it was,
they're not sharp though. That's the point I'm making. They're not match fit.
Yeah, that shouldn't take away from the intensity of the game. It's still a professional football match, so I don't think we can have any, excuses on that front. And my excuse is the fact that they haven't played together. It's difficult to get their understanding, but in terms of their actual, fitness and sharpness, there should be no excuses there, really.
George, I mean this in the nicest possible way.
Yeah, I know
it's hard to get match fit without playing. I don't like any level of conditioning that they have.
Talk over each other. Go on, Rich.
Go on, I'll let George go.
No, I was just saying that shouldn't affect like the intensity of the game. Their match fitness. You know what I mean?
Rich, back to you. I'm just refereeing this match now.
No, I'll leave it there. Like it's, it lacked a little bit of intensity, but at the same time, like if it was lacking intensity, we wouldn't have been going forward to try and get a last-minute goal. We would have just been passing it about at the side. There wouldn't have been Barnes dropping in. If Son was lacking intensity playing right back, he would have been stood on the halfway line, not getting into the box to score a last-minute goal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's different ways of looking at it. I think football has changed now. Ultimately, the product of, we're going into a wider issue here, but the product of what football used to be, where players would run up and down, hell for leather, 50-50s, it's changed now. Whether we like it or not, football is a bit more tactical and a little bit more like a game of chess. So it's very, very rare that you see a game like we're seeing with Newcastle, Liverpool, and we love that game. There's one of the best games I've watched in a long, long time. But I do agree with George actually that it did lack intensity, but at the same time that didn't bother me, because that's kind of what he expected. Like, that's what these games are like. It's the same for us as fans. We don't have that same buzz and nerves and excitement for second round League Cup games as we will for Premier League game. It's just natural human emotion to feel a little bit that way.
Yeah.
But even though like there was misplaced passes, there was still quality in the game. Look how Shauna, maybe because you didn't see the first half, like Shauna, like that first half was outstanding. He was bombing up and down that left wing, taking on the fullback, really staking a place for his, to make his, to possibly start in the league. Whether it's too early for him, I don't know. But yeah, I just thought it was an all right game to watch. I quite enjoyed it. But if George didn't, everybody's got the right to, to feel how they feel, even though I don't agree with George and George doesn't agree with me on that. So it's all good.
Yeah, and Chowner was fantastic when he came on against Sunderland. I think of any of the players, he made a huge impression. I thought he was fantastic. His physicality, the way he'd run at players. I mean, he's just built like a brick house, just at a glance. And then you saw him take the ball. I thought it was a really smart play to feed Cullen in, and then Cullen obviously gets the assist for Anthony's goal. So I think of any players from both fixtures who staked a claim to get more of a look in, it's Chowner, that's for sure.
So in terms of future cup plans, are we comfortable to have a League Cup run here, or are we not? Given that we've got a decent second string team now who can all play, and you can make 11 changes from the Premier League side, can we get excited about a cup run? None and never listeners know I love a cup run. Rich, can you get excited for one?
Well, the only thing I'm going to be really critical of Parker, I can say we got promoted in the end. I was disappointed with that team we put out in that Preston game away from home. Big derby, chance of getting the FA Cup quarter-final. It's a really difficult one because ultimately this season, the main aim is to stay in the Premier League. But my main aim and what I'd love to see more than anything as a Burnley supporter, and Palace fans will say the same last season, is to see Burnley win a cup at Wembley.
I'd love it.
That, for me, would be the holy grail. We're going to get relegated again at some point and get probably promoted again at some point, so, but it's just, the big boys now, they have, and this is where Palace is, don't get me wrong, Palace got some good players, haven't they? But this is where it's so difficult because, as we can put a good second team out, but you'll probably come across a Premier League side, maybe in the next round, you can put a second team out, it'll still be stronger than us. So I just think winning games is just a good habit to have. It breeds a good feeling. If you win midweek, you go into Saturday, United tonight, see how the game finishes. It's 82 minutes as I'm talking, it's 2-1. If they lose tonight, they'll probably be up for it on Saturday. But if the first 15, 20 minutes don't go their way, then the crowd's going to be against them. So it's really hard, these cup runs, isn't it? But Jesus, wouldn't it just in a fanciful world, wouldn't it be amazing to see Burnley win a cup at Wembley?
I think it'd just be, it's such a bucket list item, it'd just be the best thing ever. It would be a really good feeling. So George, taking aside the fact that the disappointment that you've watched the worst game of football you've ever watched in your life, which I'll probably rewind this when you watch your next worst game of football you've ever watched in your entire life. And I'm going to rewatch some of the podcasts from last season, like QPR at home, Preston at home last season. They were terrible. Can you get excited for a cup run? And where's your stance on team selection going forward? Do you stick with the second string side and let them have their cup and that's their season? Or do you start changing things around as you get, obviously picking up on what Richard said about Parker's team selection for Preston? How do you see that going? What's your preference?
I think at this point, seeing as some of the players we discussed really aren't match fit or match sharp, I guess is the word, I'd probably stick with playing those no matter who we get next round. For me, I think, to be honest, a lot of the charm of the Carabao Cup has gone really. So I think if we were to have a cup run in this, I'd love, it would be a dream to see us get to Wembley. I'd honestly rather save that for the FA Cup. It's not like we have a choice, but for me, the FA Cup's the Holy Grail, and the Carabao Cup's lost a huge amount of its reputation really over the last decade. I mean, we discussed earlier today offline the fact that these European teams are just basically getting buys the next round because they're not allowed to play each other. For me, that just denigrates the whole quality of the competition and its reputation. So yeah, for me, I'm not bothered if we get knocked out by Tom, Dick and Harry next round. But the FA Cup, I'd love to see us go for a run. Fantastic.
Excellent stuff. Okay, Let's move on and let's finish part 3 of this week's podcast and let's look ahead to United on Saturday. We are going to hand over, before we do that, to Statman Dave, who joins us remotely from the preview show studio to talk us through some stats. I'm going to pause here and hand over to the preview show studio. Dave Roberts, welcome to another episode of the preview show. We are building up to United this weekend. We've just been talking about this on our analysis show. It is game week 3, Manchester United away, Saturday, 30th of August, 3 p.m. kickoff. Yet another 3 p.m. kickoff, not officially televised in the UK. How are you feeling after 2 wins in 1 week, the Sunderland result and the Derby result? Dave, are you on a high?
Well, no, I don't get too high and I don't get too low, so I'm kind of keeping it realistic. But having said that, United haven't had the best start to the season after a very poor season last year, and they had a little hiccup at Grimsby in the cup as well. So it might be a good time to play them. You might suggest.
You might suggest, unless Grimsby have gone and made them mad.
Well, there is that.
They might, and as we are obviously recording this a little bit later than the analysis show. We're going to go back to the analysis show studio in a minute, but there's all sorts of talk on today that this might be Amorim's last game, so you never know. He might want to come out on a high. He might get it back on track. Who knows? We'll wait and see. Well, you've got lots of things in store for us for this little preview show segment, Dave. You've got stats, you've got facts, you've got memory matches, we've got newspaper clippings. Why don't we kick off this preview show, please, with your opening stats, and you can let us know what we've got to expect.
Yeah, we're looking back before we look forward, so it may not surprise you to hear that Burnley's last 25 visits to Old Trafford in all competitions since 1963 have produced just a solitary victory for the Clarets. And we'll mention more about that match a little bit later. However, in the Premier League era, 9 previous away trips for us have yielded 4 draws, as well as the win I just mentioned, and 4 defeats, which isn't a bad return, and considerably better than against many other opponents. In fact, we put together a sequence of 3 away draws between 2016 and 2019 after a Tom Heaton masterclass earned us a point in a goalless draw in October 2016. We should really have won on our next 2 visits after allowing 2-goal leads to be clawed back. They were on Boxing Day 2017 and in January 2019. And the last time the 2 teams met at Old Trafford in April 2024, a late Zeki Amdouni penalty earned us a point in a 1-1 draw. So despite a torrid time from the mid-1960s until the early 2010s, we go into this weekend's game ahead of United in the table. They've just had a solitary point from their first 2 league outings, with at least some hope of coming away with a positive result.
Some hope. How many hopes do we think we have, Dave?
Yeah, I think we've got to be positive, don't we?
Our record's not been that bad at United, actually, recently. It's been much better than it has been at, like, the Emirates and at Spurs.
Exactly. That's the point I was making. Yeah, very much so.
Definitely. Out of all of the really big sides that we've met, the Giants in the Champions League, United's the one that we seem to do a little better against. So that's really, really good. Well, let's move on because we've got more stats. We've got some headline feature. Talk us through what we've got with this one.
Yeah, on to our new headline highlights feature, in which we take a look back at a memorable past Premier League match against our next opponents. And with just 1 Premier League away win in 9 previous attempts against the Red Devils, this match pretty much picked itself this time. Even a 2-goal lead at Old Trafford isn't any guarantee of a win for a visiting team, as we previously discovered to our cost. But in January 2020, a well-taken goal in the first half from Chris Wood and a thunderbolt of a shot from Jade Rodriguez in the second half, after some very slick passing in the build-up, finally gave us all 3 points. And to celebrate the occasion, we're going to take a look back at how this match was reported on the sports pages of some local and national newspapers. Kicking off first with the Burnley Express. I don't have a scan of the Burnley Express. I've just got this from the Chris Bowden's write-up on the website. We had Burnley leave United all shook up. But then for the Lancashire Telegraph, and viewers on YouTube can see the headline for this was third time lucky as Claret stun United. That's alluding to the fact that we'd lost those 2-goal leads, but made it third time lucky in this particular match, which was January 2020. Moving on, we have the headline from The Guardian, a smaller headline on there. Rodriguez bolt from the blue leaves Old Trafford in shock. And then finally, we have The Independent, which was, focusing on United, really. Even though there's a picture of Chris Wood celebrating his goal. Solskjaer's future hangs in the balance after Nunadia. But we have to remember, they actually went on even though they lost this match, they went on a really long unbeaten run after that defeat to us. So it wasn't a case of, lose to Burnley and you get the sack, although he was under pressure. They stuck with him and they went on a really good run after that.
Yeah, definitely. So what are you going to tease our fans with? You've also got a little visual to tease the United
Well,
fans.
yeah, I was at that game. I was covering it with Phil Bird for the club, doing the commentary for that, and there were so many empty seats. I think even though the last twice they'd come back and got late goals, I think the fans realised that it wasn't going to happen. It was really foggy night as well. It came over really foggy, but there were so many empty seats. It looks like they'd all come in red and white fancy dress at the end. Old Trafford. It was a sight to see, certainly.
I love it. Really good stuff. Some really good memories there. I think I'm feeling quite buoyant. We all love an away win at United. We've just been discussing on our analysis show before then, Dave, just before we came to you, about United have been a bang average mid-table championship side and a struggling one for many seasons now with
not championship.
Sorry, Premier League. Yeah, gosh.
Give it a few seasons. You never know.
12 months. And I do wonder whether perhaps the occasion of Old Trafford and the fame of that stadium sometimes gets the better of teams, and that's why they can get away with getting some points as they are. But when you're a team struggling like United, you've got to take as much as you can, haven't you? Do you want to give us some referee details then, please?
Yeah, we do have details of this weekend's referee. It'll be the 6th time that West Yorkshire-based official Sam Barrett of Home Firth has taken charge of a Burnley match. We got off to a good start in November 2022 when we beat Crawley Town 3-1 at Turf Moor in a League Cup tie. We've lost all of his next 4 games. They were all during the 2023-24 season. 3 of those were in the Premier League and 1 in the FA Cup. There have been no red cards in any of Sam Barrett's 5 previous Burnley games, and his yellow card count stands at 9 to Burnley players and 8 to our opponents. Meanwhile, the video assistant referee this weekend is Stuart Atwell.
Lovely stuff. Well, listeners, you know by now that there is an incredible database full of Burnley stats and facts, and now newspaper clippings that Dave has been cultivating for a good number of years now. Going forward, the preview show is going to just be on YouTube this year, but given that this is a bumper edition with the analysis show, we do have a podcast offering as well. So our viewers can see this on screen. But Dave, why don't you tell our podcast listeners how they can follow your stats page?
I've got a short link to try and make it easier for the menu page. That short link is bit.ly/ and then all in uppercase Burnley Stats QL. So it's bit.ly/ Burnley Stats QL in uppercase, and that gives you the menu page, and you can see everything that's available. Well, most of what's available, the most popular pages you can see, and dig into those to your heart's content.
Good stuff. Do please drop Dave a follow. And you know what? Given that you listen to the podcast for free, if you want to send him some subs at any point, that would be very well received. He's got a little piggy bank on his side, and it would be very nice if you can send him a couple of quid to help maintain that database. I'm going to be your PR manager every preview show, Dave, and ask people to pay you. Okay, Dave, we are going to head back shortly to the analysis studio, where I'm going to be asking Rich and George for their score predictions ahead of this game against United. So I'm going to get yours. So you'll be the first one to tell us how you think Burnley are going to play.
I think we're capable of winning. I don't know. My heart says, Burnley win, maybe 2-1. But my head says, it might be a bit more cagey. It might be a draw. So my head's saying it might be a 1-1 draw.
Okay, well, let's see what our analysis show panel team have got to say. Dave, thank you very much. When will the next preview show be? We've got internationals, haven't we, next week? So will it be a week on Thursday that we have our week on Friday? Sorry, our next preview show.
Yeah, we play Liverpool at home, don't we, the week after the international break. I think that's been moved, hasn't it? That's on the Sunday, isn't it?
It will. Well, we will catch you then, Dave, for our preview show for the Liverpool game. But in the meantime, thank you very much. Okay, team. Surely this is a very good time to play United, Richard Steele. What are we thinking? Are we nervous about going to Old Trafford, or are we thinking that we can do them?
No, I'm not nervous. I think beating Sunderland as well, like, takes the pressure off a little bit. I don't like to say it's a free hit, but so it kind of is really, isn't it? But like United's going to be like mid-table at best, aren't they? This year, like, you know, you kind of think before the season, well, they signed this player, they signed that player, but watching them and like they're still shit, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can
Premier League side for a long time.
You know, you can put the odd bit of glitter over a turd, but at the end of the day, it just becomes a sprinkly turd, doesn't it? And I think that's what United are at the moment.
Not use that analogy.
Why?
Sure.
Everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows what it is. But like, no, genuinely now, like, what would be a harder game, going away to Bournemouth or going away to Old Trafford? I know that might sound a mad question, but
what? Oh, it's no difference. Yeah, I'd be more concerned.
Yeah, it's equal, isn't it? They're in that bracket, so you know they're still, you know, obviously they're going to bring the starting 11 back in and different feel to it. And literally, I think 5 minutes ago, I said I think they'll come hard at us that first 15 minutes. They might not do. You know, we might just start on the front foot and there might be like nerves from the off. But I always feel it going to these big clubs, you know, especially in the Premier League, away from home, get through the first, we didn't do it at Tottenham, get through the first 15, 20 minutes and then the game settles down, the crowd will be on the bat. You know, we've got a good ability to, oh, they're going to score. No, they've got a good ability to keep, you know, we've got a better ability to keep the ball at the moment than we've, you know, and be solid in our structure. So, yeah, I definitely think like it's one of them where you go, we can get something here where in the next game after the international break, I know we're at home, but we're playing Liverpool at home, you're kind of thinking,
no, that's
a bit unrealistic to get something. But yeah, this is a game I am quietly confident going into it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's very exciting. George, I do wonder whether some of the results at Old Trafford, particularly over the recent seasons, when you consider just how bang average a side they've become, that there's just something mentally about having to go to Old Trafford that it's still got that element of theatre about it, and it's still got that element of it being a very hard place to go. It doesn't strike me as that we've got a squad of players who will necessarily be overwhelmed by that at all.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think if we were to win, we'd still, you know, on social media, I think the Burnley account would still be, you know, giving it. We've won at Old Trafford, you know, second win at Old Trafford in 80 years. You know, there's certainly still that history to it. And we've not actually been part of the Premier League in a season where United have been awful. No. You know, last season they were awful. But, you know, say a few years ago when we won there, or even when we went 2-0 up and they came back and drew 2-2, you know, at that point they had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in charge and they were still finishing second, third, fourth in the Premier League. They were still a good side. You know, obviously they'd have this potential for an upset there, but they were still a decent side. Last season's obviously flipped everything on its head, and going off what we're seeing this evening where they're 2-1 down at Grimsby at the moment, it really is awful times to be a United fan. Oh gosh, my heart bleeds for them. But to be honest, there's part of me that I call me superstitious, call me, I don't know, cosmic. I don't know what you'd say. I do try to think there's patterns in football. You know, there's if a team gets really badly beat in Europe in midweek, I find that they'll often come out at the weekend and win because they need to. They need to for fans. You know, they have to. There's no alternative from them winning at the weekend. And to be honest, I do think if United lose tonight, they've got no alternate but to just batter us on Saturday. Not because of anything we do, but just because that's the way the world works, you know, and their fans expect. So I guess we'll see. We'll see. I think, like Rich says, if after 10, 15 minutes, the score's 0-0 and they've missed a couple of chances, I think all of a sudden that crowd turns and it's getting to a point now where they need to start winning, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
They do. And you know what? I wanted Amorim to be a success, really, because I respect.
Well, they just scored.
Oh, have they?
I think they just
Maguire.
equalised last minute, so that's a shame. But I really wanted that to be a success for him, just because I like the way he speaks. But yeah, I guess we'll see on
Another
Saturday.
football blagger, though. Like, he's got his little whiteboard and tactic board out there. They're all fucking. Oh, sorry. They're all just for show these days. Honestly, there's so many people in the world at the moment who just chat who are just full of nonsense. Like, they're just full of jargon. And he's another one of them. He's just another one of them. Sorry, Natalie. It's just he white people like him.
I'm happy with this. I'm happy with
44 minutes. I need my bleeper. Go on, George.
I'm happy
Sorry.
with this Grimsby result, because, like I was just trying to say, I think if they'd have lost to Grimsby tonight, they'd have had no choice but to honestly batter us on Saturday, because they are United. You can't lose to Grimsby and Burnley in the same week. It doesn't happen.
But you can. As Mick McCarthy said, can it get any
That
worse?
bad?
It can.
It can. Well, it couldn't. And now we'll see, won't we? But I think, on Saturday, I think we can expect to go there with confidence, and I think that's what you'll see from our players. We'll go back to a back five, and I think we'll actually take the game to them a bit more. And we'll have tinkered with that formation a bit since Tottenham to make sure in midfield with Leslie and Cullen we have a bit more firm grip of the game and we don't let it pass us by. I think Tottenham really exposed going long and going straight into our midfield and defence area, and we won't allow United to do the same.
Yeah, that's fine. What do you expect Parker's going to do in terms of formation and players? Are we going Spurs or are we sticking with Sunderland, Rich?
I'd rather stick with the form. I know like Brun Larson did at times when we didn't have the ball go into that kind of like act as a back five, but let's be honest, he still mainly played as a winger, for the majority of the game. I'd prefer us to go with that shape. I think it's the shape that suits us the best. I don't know what I'll do. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. But if my personal preference, not that it makes any difference, would be to kind of stick with the same team. Do I play Brun Larson? 50-50. I'd be tempted to play Schauner because he's a big, powerful lad. He's got pace. You need that pace on the counter attack. I do really like Brun Larson. And quite like what you're going to get from him. And if he was starting on Saturday, I wouldn't be like gutted or anything like that. But yeah, I'd like to see Schauner start because he's not somebody who's just not going to do his defensive duties either. I think he's, and I think he's got a bit of swagger about him. I think as well. I don't think he'll be overawed by it. So I'd probably start him. Yeah.
Finish me off with a score prediction, then, please, George. George,
I'd like to be optimistic, and I think if after 20 minutes the game's not going United's way, I think we can get at them. Like Rich says, if we get ahead 1-0 in games this season, I fully expect us to be able to put up a really astute defensive display. So I'm going to go with 1-0 Burnley on Saturday, with Šeško for United starting and missing a couple of big chances, and the whole sort of talk about have they wasted another 70 million on another striker fueling after the game. I think that'll be all over 6-6 with Sutton and Savage. Is Šeško a waste of money? Come Sunday evening after a Burnley 1-0.
It's a very specific prediction, and I like it. I've got a lot of time for it, George Poole. Rich, score prediction, please.
2-1 Burnley. I think we'll go 1-0 up. I think they'll equalise, and then I think we'll get a winner.
Excellent.
Last minute in front of the away end.
I think it's going to be Burnley. I think it's going to be Burnley 2-0. I don't think we're going to concede. I think Burnley are going to score 2. I think we're going to score 2 great goals, and I think we're going to absolutely destroy them. So, listeners, you know the drill by now. You need to give us your score predictions. Please drop your comments in the notes below and let us know what you think. Those of you who are listening on the podcast channel, please drop us on social media. Let us know what you think the score will be. Okay, let's wrap it up. That is all we have time for this bumper edition. We've crammed it all into one, which we tend to do when we've got more than one game going on in the week. Hope you enjoyed that, listeners. Let us know. If not, we would love to hear in the comments section what you want to see from that United game and what you think the score will be. My thanks go to Rich and George for their analysis in this show, to Statman Dave for his stats ahead of the game, and to you, the listener, for downloading and listening to this episode. Your support is very much appreciated, and we would not be here without you. We will be back next week, next Tuesday, with the analysis show, looking ahead to what will hopefully be looking back, on what will have hopefully been a very well-earned 3 points at Old Trafford, and keep an eye out for the next preview show, which will come to you after the international break. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the Known and Never podcast. Until next time.
The Known and Never podcast is brought to you in association with the TalkSport Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting knownandnever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners TalkSport. We are proud to be associated with the TalkSport Fan Network.